today, let's talk about devotion options. I'm Pastor Phil. This is St. Paul's, and you found your way to Family Friday. Good morning, I'm Pastor Phil, and we are outside on my favorite bench here, just outside the doors of St. Paul's. We have a couple options here for your consideration. And we've talked about Bibles and kind of what devotional life can look like and all these kind of things. So now we're going to get down to the nitty gritty and kind of deal with tools. And what is it that we can have in order to actually lead devotions? The most important one is the Bible, though. I mean, fundamentally, you need to have a Bible that you are comfortable reading, that you understand what's being said. And mom and dad, it's really important that you understand what's being said as you read through it and lead your children. Because here's the thing, if you're reading and you don't understand it and they ask questions, you're not going to be able to answer. Now, I want you to know, you can by all means forward questions on to me and I'll address them as best as I can. But in that moment, your child is going to ask you questions and you have to be able to respond. And the best way to be able to respond is to actually be in Scripture, reading it on your own, in your own devotion, as well as your family's, and then to actually understand what's being said. So I strongly encourage you to find yourself that Bible that you can understand completely. I've got some options for us here today. One that starts out from the beginning is a book similar to this. This is published by CSS Publishing Company. This was given to me as a gift by a man that he's deceased now, but I had great affection for, have great affection for. His name is Reverend Dr. Fred Harms, that he has sermons written in this. Now, this particular piece is sermons based on the Pericope series, or the readings of the church. And if you get into this, you'll see that there's sermons in there, and some of them are longer than others. But in each case, you have the opportunity in 4 to 6 pages, give or take, to be able to go through and have that godly wisdom poured into your life. Now, for a young family, this one might be kind of tough. And I'm going to be honest, for the ones that I've got out here today, these are probably for kind of older students, a little bit older families. So maybe next week I'll try to bring in something for the younger crowd. But this is an excellent way to bring devotional life into you. Now, you don't even have to do everything all at once. You can read up to a point and then stop. Say you can only do 2 pages. Do the 2 pages, contemplate on the text of the message, read through the message as you can, work through it, and then when you get to the end, maybe talk about it for a devotion. And in doing that, you're going to actually be taking part in what God has given us. If you go through a sermon series similar to this one, I believe these are all LCMS writers in here. I would encourage you to make sure that the theologians who are preaching are faithful. Faithful theologians. In this particular text, I've not read through the whole thing, but I know 2 of the 4 pastors that are featured on the front. So something similar to this would be an excellent option. This particular text is called Sermons on the Second Readings, Series 1, Cycle B. And then Fred R. Harms is the gentleman who I have great esteem for. He was an incredible pastor. The next one I would suggest is kind of a 2-parter. We've got the Catechism and then kind of a guide to go through the Catechism. This one was written by Dr. Robert Kolb. I studied under him several times going through the seminary. He is an absolutely incredible man. This book is called Teaching God's Children His Teaching, a guide for study of Luther's Catechism. And as I was looking at this, what's nice about going through this is, on one side, I do think that this is geared a little bit more towards pastors, but I think it could be used by a family for devotions. And the reason why is Dr. Kolb is very specific in going through and not having very long sections, that the sections are reasonably short so that we can go through, discuss the topic, following along inside of the catechism. He makes some very good connections between history and theology. He is a historical theologian with a specialty in Reformation theology. He's amazing. He's amazing. So this would be one that I would suggest. But if you get this, I would also suggest that you have the small catechism alongside of it, because that's what he's talking about in here. But these would be the another set that you could look at. This isn't a very big book. You can notice that it's small by comparison to the catechism. This is one that I've looked at in helping teach confirmation and catechism and that kind of thing. And like I said, just to be aware, this is written to kind of the pastor. It's not necessarily always meant for the layperson, but I truly believe it's something that could be worked into the family. If you decide to go ahead and do this as a layperson in the family and you say that and you find that it does not work, please let me know and I'll take this off of my suggested list. And if you find that it does work, I'd love to hear your feedback on what your opinion is. But this would be an option that I would heartily suggest, where you go through, walk through the catechism. It's all the basic teachings of the church with a book like this alongside, where you'll be able to kind of get some of that extra stuff brought into you that makes it a little bit easier. The last one that I've got for you is quite possibly my favorite devotional. This is specifically written for during the Lenten season. It's 40 days long, and it really causes reflection on the Lenten season itself. And this is called On the Way to the Cross. This was written by Thomas C. Oden. He has passed away, and Joel C. Olowski. Now, this once again is another professor that I studied under in the seminary. Dr. Olowski is an incredible pastor and teacher. You are not going to go wrong sitting at his feet inside of this particular text, but the thing is, you're not sitting at his feet really. What you're doing as you go through this is you're going to have a little bit of a worship service almost set up. And realistically, this could even be a format, if you use this book and you decide that you like it, that you could carry over into all of your other devotions going through life. It starts, I'm not sure which Wednesday this is, I just opened up the book, but it starts on a Wednesday. It has a reading from Daniel 9. There's a confession that you find earlier in the text that you can go through. I used to have it memorized because I used it. That it's on page 11. You can use that confession, and then you have a scripture reading, and then you have reflections from the church father. And in this particular case, you have Gregory of Nazianzus talking about what it means to be a child of the perfect light. Then there's, it looks like a little piece of poetry that we don't know where it came from, but it's part of one of the Advent antiphons. Finally, a closing prayer, and it gives you a series of other readings that if you wish to go forward any further. I try to go through this particular devotion every Lent, and I look forward to it. That it's one that I truly enjoy. I would suggest any of these as being a good means by which to begin that devotional life. Perhaps this would be the best and easiest one, especially if you are older kids and that kind of thing, because it has kind of a worship service pattern to it, in that there's the confession where you acknowledge your sin, there's the reading of the gospel, and then you have almost a sermon in the early church father reading, that there's that gospel proclamation into our lives where it talks about Jesus and how he works inside of us. It's an excellent one. I thoroughly, strongly suggest this for your use. There's other options out there that are similar to this, and we definitely can go through. And if you know of any put them in here, and I'll definitely consider reviewing them as time allows. Next week, I'm going to go through and try to grab some of the devotionals that my family and I have used with my kids. I've got an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old that we've tried to do devotions early on. If I remember correctly, we had like VeggieTales devotions at one point, and several other things that I'll try to go through and grab some of those devotions and share them with you next week. So suffice it to say, we'll say that this is our say 10-year-old, 11-year-old and up, and next week we'll try to do something for the younger group. I pray that this has been helpful to you. I look forward to seeing you again, and I hope to see you in church on Sunday, 8:30 at St. Paul's, 9:30 at Emmanuel, and it's wonderful to have you here. God bless, and we'll see you again.